I'm Sarah Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Hello, everyone. Welcome to what is, for many on the East Coast, February break. A misnomer until your kids are older. No break involved. Maybe a change in location, though, which is stressful. February in any year, whether located in the cold coasts or the warmer areas, can be a time when the world feels a little heavier than normal. January has a lot of newness, fresh starts, but February is when the rubber meets the road and can be a tough bridge to spring. We're also all doing February in 2026, when, as my own therapist said recently, the context in which we're living just doesn't make sense. There's a tremendous loss of normalcy. Hard to know what to hold on to, which is, of course, existentially destabilizing. And we're trying to raise kids, deliver at work, be good partners, citizens, siblings, children, etc., etc. It's a lot. Today's guest is thematically relevant then, and she represents an area that I want us to do more with in future episodes, as the majority of our guests so far have confided that their postpartum experience, whether happening in 2026 or not, involved a lot more white knuckling than they realized it needed to. And medication and therapy were essential to making it through. Dr. Emily Guarnotta is one of those mothers, and she is a clinical psychologist with a focus on perinatal mental health, aka life during and after pregnancy, which she has turned into the foundation of her own growing business. After her own experience navigating a tough postpartum and experiencing a lot of shame that even she, as a psychologist, couldn't take steps to get the help she needed, she decided to build something to make help more accessible for parents. Phoenix Health, rising from the ashes, of course. It's a growing network of psychologists focused on, as they say, quote, the hardest parts of parenthood, from infertility and loss to pregnancy and postpartum. They provide specialized online therapy to help you navigate the overwhelm and feel like yourself again. I know personally that lowering the barrier to entry to psychological support is essential. When you're in that place, you may know you need help, you may want help, but trying to get it is impossible, and that's where it so easily breaks down and would feel easier to just grit it out. Emily is known as a gentle and validating therapist, and you'll hear that in our interview. A reminder to me that the loudest person in the room is not necessarily right or the only voice that matters. In our conversation, you'll hear more about Emily's own story becoming a mother, the inspiration and experience launching Phoenix Health with help, and important strategies we can all consider as we navigate our own postpartum journeys or help others do the same. I hope you all listen with care and remember that your own doctor is the one to listen to first and foremost. But if this conversation helps anyone move closer to the first convo with a professional, we've done our job. And I also hope we can do more on this topic, as I said. So please reach out to me personally, hello@themothersmedia.co, if you have suggestions for the best way to do so. Otherwise, please enjoy my conversation with Dr. Emily Guarnotta. What's up, Emily? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. How do I find you today? Whatever day it is. Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah.
How's your Thursday going so far?
Yeah, pretty good. I start a little later on Thursday, so I always go to the gym. So I feel like my Thursdays are the best days.
Wise. Good job. I also like when days, like each day of the week has a different flow. It's very important. Like if it's a straight up starts the same time, same thing every day. That is a, I don't know, short path to depression. Maybe something less intense.
Boring. Yeah.
Burnout. We'll call it burnout. Well, thank you so much for doing this and reaching out. I'm really excited. I love, obviously, your whole platform and this topic and your profession is like incredibly timely and incredibly important to me personally, but also our audience. And I love that you're building your own business around it, which is not easy. So I'm excited to kind of dig into how that all has come to be, who you are, and what we can all learn from your expertise. We talked to a lot of mothers, obviously, who struggle in ways that they can't quite articulate or are trying to juggle home life and work life and feeling like they're failing on all sides, or trying to figure out how to ask for help when there are people that don't know how to ask for help or how to receive it either. So yeah, I feel like you're very well positioned to speak to all of these things.
So much for having
Thanks for being here. Yeah, it'll be great. Also important as we head into holidays, which I feel like are as a heavy time, or can be joyful and heavy. So do you have any questions or anything before we get started?
No, I have to say that document you sent over was super helpful. It's very, very informative. So thank you.
Good. Well, we'll follow where the conversation goes. And I'm sure you'll be great. And I'll try to keep up. So the way we like to start, because I feel like the world tells our stories for us. But I personally just am obsessed with people's stories, but I would love to understand like how you got into this. And I feel like I'm guessing were interested in this area maybe before you had kids of your own. But how did we get to where we are today, personally, professionally? You can start wherever actually feels relevant. Some people go all the way back.
That was good. I'm a psychologist, and I've been working as a psychologist for about 10 years. And early in my career, I worked with substance abuse. I worked with a lot of just adults and teenagers that were navigating life stressors, anxiety, depression, a lot of different areas. But I had never touched on maternal mental health or perinatal mental health. I knew that postpartum depression and anxiety existed, but I really didn't know the nitty gritty of it. And then 7 years ago, I had my first child, and I developed postpartum depression. And the whole experience just really opened my eyes to what maternal mental health entails. And I had a lot of internalized stigma. I felt like as a mental health professional, I should have been able to prevent what happened, and it sounds like so naive in hindsight, but I just felt like I shouldn't have been the one to experience it. I should have had all the tools at my disposal. So the whole experience was really challenging. It took me a long time to admit that's what was happening and then to get back into my own therapy. But once I did, and I went on my own healing journey, I got better. I really wanted to learn more about it. So I started like really repivoting my career. I started getting more training in it because we don't get training in graduate school on this topic, on maternal mental health. So I had to do all that on my own.
You previously were doing, sorry, just general, what was your area of expertise before? Was it sort of generalized? I don't know
Okay. Yeah, I was working with substance use, generalized anxiety, depression, but I had never worked specifically with moms or parents that were going through postpartum depression and anxiety.
Yeah. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's really what led me to pivot my career into this area. Mm-hmm. And I just fell in love with it because I love helping other parents that are going through something that I've, personally experienced.
For sure. Yes. And how was it to do that with kids? Or how old are your kids now?
They're 5 and 7.
Man. Yeah. So you were working professional psychologist, had your own kids, had your own serious mental health struggles, and then kind of turned all of that into like launching a business, which is not easy, but I feel like these are things that we make feel easy or seem easy. Can you like walk me through like the inner experience, like not the pretty outside, but like what that was like on the inside of how you kind of like found it within you to do any of this?
Yeah. So I had a small solo practice that I was running, my own therapy practice. And then during the pandemic, I turned it into virtual. And I found that really worked well for parents because, new moms with a baby at home, the thought of coming to an appointment and schlepping their baby out or finding childcare. I mean, that was a big barrier for me when I had my first pre-COVID. So I found that it made the help so much more accessible. And I felt like there was a better way, that I need to figure out a better way to help parents because just me, myself, I was having to turn folks away and I didn't have good providers in the community to refer them to that I knew had this extra training in maternal mental health. So a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years ago, I met my co-founder, who has a completely different skill set than me. He comes from a banking and a technology background, but that was really what I needed to be able to make my idea, put it into
Yeah.
action and really make it something. So the past
Yeah.
couple of years, we've been working on a way to make this treatment, this help more accessible to more people, and which involves getting into more states. There's like a lot of licensing involved in healthcare and
Mm-hmm.
navigating insurance networks across different states. People aren't always aware, but like every state has its own um, everything when it comes to business and it comes to licenses and it comes to insurance. So there's a lot of legwork behind the scenes that most people aren't aware that goes on, that took
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years to even figure out before we were actually able to open our door and see a client.
Yeah. Wow. How did you happen to meet him? I'm curious.
I actually
Your
met him
co-founder.
through a co-founder match app type of, it's
Oh,
like
nice.
Tinder for co-founders.
Yes.
I think it might have been Y Combinator, or it was either Y Combinator or another one. I know it was on a couple, and I was meeting with a couple different people. But when I met with him, it really felt like the right fit because he also had passion for working in mental health and had built
Mhm.
another mental health platform in the past, plus had a different
Mhm.
skill set than me. So it was kind of like a perfect match. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
I think any person that I know that's built a business always says it's way harder than you ever expect it's going to be when you start. And if you knew how
Yeah.
hard it was, you probably wouldn't have started. Though some ignorance is bliss,
Mhm.
kind of like having a baby,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so it's been a lot of hard work, a lot of figuring things out on the go, things um that I didn't know that were outside of my area of expertise. Like I feel very
Mhm.
confident in offering treatment. And as a psychologist,
Mhm.
the psychology, the therapy, the therapeutic interventions I use, I feel very confident in that space.
I really was interested in what you're saying, where you had your own kid and you realized that you were personally struggling with the thing that you'd sort of been treating others for, or something that you felt like you should have known about. Like, what have you made of that process of like going through your own postpartum depression and finding your way out? Like, how has that, what lessons have you learned from that? And how does that inform how you help others now?
One big lesson I learned was that it can impact anybody, that some
Hmm.
people have risk factors that increase the likelihood that they could develop a perinatal mental health condition like anxiety or depression postpartum. But
Hmm.
when it comes down to it, we're all vulnerable to it, and most of us have at least one risk factor. So a lot of my work and what I try to talk about is prevention. Like the reaction part, the treating the symptoms is really important, but the prevention part I think doesn't get enough attention. So I really try to
Hmm.
talk about ways that you can prepare yourself for this transition into motherhood and put safeguards in place that will help reduce the likelihood that you'll develop a perinatal mental health condition. We can't guarantee
Hmm.
that it won't happen, but when we talk about it and we prepare for it, we can significantly increase the likelihood that you'll have, a smoother transition into motherhood.
Yeah. What are those? What are the tips? How are we supposed to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, I talk with expecting parents or parents who are even preparing to start trying to have a baby about what their support system looks like. I mean, we don't, we aren't all born with this like great support system. It all looks different. So
Yeah.
if you have one existing, that's wonderful. If you don't, we have to talk about ways to build that and what that's going to look like. We talk about different stressors that come up and how to navigate those, like finances, I find are a huge stressor for people going into parenthood and a big point of
Mhm.
contention between couples. So if you're having open communication with your couple on that, also role expectations with your partner, like how you're raised, how they're raised, um, may be similar, but it may be very different. And you want to make sure that you're both being open about what your expectations for yourself and each other are, and having those check-ins and making sure that that line of communication is open. And the return to work part is huge. That's something that I talk about a lot. If a mother is going to be working outside the home, like I want to talk with her about what that process is going to be like, what her, the company that she works for, what their expectations are, what plans are, and
Mm-hmm.
figure out ways that can help support her in that process. It's pretty individualized from every person, but those are some important things that I definitely touch on is the work piece, partner communication piece, and the social support piece.
Yeah. Tell me more if you could. The support system piece is, I think, really important. And I mentioned this up front, but like a theme among all of the people that we interview, who are all at this point, all mothers who are working outside the home, as you say. And all of them are like, it's so hard. I don't want to do it all by myself. I feel like I'm doing it all, and the advice that they would give to their younger self or the thing they wish that they had was like this village or the community or a sense of like a support network. And everyone wants it, but no one I've spoken with has been able to say that they like have it. Um, so I'm curious what you advise people, like what does it look like to get that support system in place and who's involved and like how do you actually do that?
Yeah, some villages have to be built, and sometimes
Yeah.
they're paid help, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a doula, it's a, a nanny, a childcare worker, sometimes it's daycare.
Mm-hmm.
It it can all look very different. Sometimes it's a mom community, a local community, or I love these mom walks that are popping up in different cities,
Mm-hmm.
connecting with other parents. Sometimes it's your neighbors. Sometimes it is your own parents or your own family.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the case for everyone. So just kind of like thinking about what resources you have, and which is one of the biggest barriers I really see to people building their villages is that they're afraid to
Mm-hmm.
put themselves out there, especially when
Yeah.
like making friends. So it's definitely something that I work on a lot with the moms that I work with in therapy. But I always say like every mom wants to make more mom friends. Like it's very rare that you come across a mom that's like, I'm good, I don't need any more friends. Like most of us,
Mm-hmm.
if we're at the park with our kids and there's another mom there and we are having a conversation with them, like most of us want to keep that conversation going or would love for the other person to say, can I get your number? It's not weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's like most of us want that. So it's just working through your own fears about putting yourself out there or fears of rejection, because we all really want connection at the end of the day.
Yeah. Can you share how you figured that out? Maybe pre or post? Like, was this something that contributed to some of the challenges that you had and how you found your way through in terms of getting the support systems in place?
Yeah, lack of support was definitely a risk factor for me that I believe contributed to having
Mm-hmm.
postpartum depression. And I've had to really work on figuring out what my village looks like. And it is a good part of it is paid help, like it's
Mm-hmm.
daycare. Um, it's sometimes ordering takeout. It's
Mm-hmm.
my own therapy. And I've had to work through my own fears about putting myself out there with other moms. I did move to another state when my youngest was about 1 or 1.5, and my oldest was like 3 or 4, turning 4. So that really pushed me where I went to a place where I had no friends. So if I was going to make friends, like I had to do it and I had to really step outside of my comfort zone. And once I did it once or twice, I asked for someone's number and they were like more than happy to give it and like even excited that I
Mm-hmm.
asked for it. I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. And I'm a very shy person. So 10 years ago, I never would have thought that I would have done something like that. But just
Yeah.
with all the moms I speak to, I really hear how much they all want connection. And I remember that every time I have an opportunity to kind of take some kind of an interaction to the next level. I remember that more than likely that person is going to be really pleased that asking for their phone number or asking them to have a plate,
Yeah.
something.
Yes. It's important to remember it because it is funny. It does feel uncomfortable or like you're an intrusion, but actually, you're absolutely right. Like, who doesn't want that? Um, what was because a lot of people that are listening also not all of them, but maybe finding themselves in a period where they feel like they're struggling and like, I don't know, is this postpartum depression? Is it not? Well, one thing that I personally struggled with, so I have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 4. And I feel like after each one, my version of postpartum depression was mostly like flared up anxiety around, is it just a cold? Are you sure? Like, can you make sure? Like, and eventually with sort of, and weepiness early on, but sort of stabilized over time. And yet, the closest form of screening, I have my own therapist, but related to, you bring your kid into these early pediatric appointments when they're like weeks old, days old. And there's a like question, one question that's like to me, to the mom, related to kind of to what extent are you enjoying things as much as you used to enjoy? Like some very like not nuanced question about like how you're feeling, and you're filling that out and you're like, I know what's going to happen if I say yes to this versus no. And a lot of myself, but a lot of others too, are like, is it really that bad? Or is this something that I can manage and should be able to manage? Does this qualify as something that needs medical attention, or is this just like working through the experience? Like, I'm wondering like what you could say to that person or to my prior self. Like, what is that? How do people like, how do they go from there to figuring out how to actually feel better and get better? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many thoughts about just screening in general.
Yeah.
Won't want to get to, but I have a lot of opinions about that and sometimes how it's handled, because I think just handing a mom, a form to fill out without any context or any rapport beforehand makes it really difficult to answer it honestly.
Yeah.
And the way that you should be answering it is really based on how you've been feeling in like the last week or 2 weeks. So in that moment, you might feel okay. But if you think back through the last couple of days, if 90% of the day you weren't feeling really good, you want to answer it based on, how you were feeling the majority of the time. So I would just encourage honest answering. And one fear that I've heard people say is they're just worried that at the worst of it, that their baby would be taken away. And that's not going to happen for answering honestly that things aren't as enjoyable as they were before. It's really important to be honest about it. More than likely, if you're honest about it and you do screen positively, so there's like numbers that they use to rate the different responses to the questions, your provider will offer you a referral for for a therapist or maybe a psychiatrist. And it's really up to you, if you take it or not. And it can feel very like, embarrassing is not the right word, but it's some variation of that. When everyone's telling you like you're supposed to be so happy and you're not feeling your best, and then they offer you this referral to a mental health professional, you can feel really like something's wrong with you or really inadequate. But that's not the case at all. Like, it's just, it is a really hard time. And I think we need to be more honest about how challenging it really is for the majority, and be careful about telling moms like, this is the best time of your life and aren't you so happy, and assuming that it's, so great, because it might not be for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there a moment for you that when it clicked, or when you were like, something's going on, I need help? Like, was there some turning point specifically for you? Was it related to going back to work? I don't know.
Going back to work definitely threw me for a loop. I kind of, throughout my 4th trimester, I really just pushed through. I was really struggling, but I was not admitting that what was really going on. And then when I went back to work, things felt very unmanageable. And I don't think that there was a specific incident. I think I just felt like I can't keep going like this. I can't picture another year like this. So I got to figure something out. And what would I tell my clients? Like, if someone came to me and said that they were going through this, I would tell them absolutely to seek help. So I finally was able to kind of practice what I preach.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm wondering, another thing we talk about a lot on this show is like shifts in identity, and how it can be certainly compounded by mental health struggles, but like what happens when you go from who you were to having this child while you're, not working, but trying to go back to work, and sort of just like this mess of like, who am I, and who do I want to be? Who can I be anymore? Which I feel like now there's more discussion a little bit, maybe in a medical setting or not, but around in a therapy setting of like, you really are going through a shift that is within maybe the medical umbrella of like a postpartum something. How does that show up in like mothers that you work with? Does that show up? Did that show up for you in terms of this identity shift? Like what can we learn from what you've seen and what you experience?
Yeah, I think we have to talk about matrescence a lot more, and this
Mm-hmm.
matrescence being this transformation, kind of like adolescence, where there's this hormonal upheaval, there's all these emotional changes, physical changes, just on every
Mm-hmm.
cellular level. There's so many changes. We have to talk more about that, and not just expecting that moms are going to be the same person. You go to give birth, you're not the same person that you are the second that baby's put in your arms. Like, so much has changed
Mm-hmm.
and continues to change throughout that first year and beyond. So we need to be really more honest and upfront with moms about what this really is, because when I had my first child 7 years ago, I felt like these conversations weren't happening. And I think social
Yeah.
media has helped a bit, that people are talking more
Mm-hmm.
about it, but especially amongst like older generations too, I don't hear these conversations happening. It's very much like,
Mm-hmm.
like this is the best thing, and um
Mm-hmm.
it should be the happiest time of your life, and like all these assumptions that it's just you're gonna feel so good and just be so overjoyed, and then when you're not, you really feel like something's wrong with you. So we really need to
Mm-hmm.
be more open and honest, and I love that our generation is doing that, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
making other moms feel like so much more safe and acknowledging when they're really struggling.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the postpartum shifts? Like, I feel like I read more or I hear something new all the time. Like 5 years out from your last child, you're still going through something. Like it takes so long to kind of not return to who you were necessarily, but like sort of re-stabilized in a sense. What is that arc like? Like how long are all of us essentially postpartum? And like just still trying to like figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like I'm 7 years postpartum.
Yeah.
Yeah, on social media, you'll see things like your 2 years, postpartum takes 2 years, like the different numbers will be thrown out. I don't know that there's any scientific data to that. I just know that there's obviously a very huge transformation that happens, and that you're never really back to your old self. Um,
Hmm.
but in terms of like when you start to feel maybe a bit more comfortable in your skin, I think it does vary from person to person. And I think if you're struggling with a mental health condition like anxiety, like depression, or you've had trauma and you've developed PTSD, or you have perinatal OCD, um, and that's gone untreated, it's gonna increase the chances that you're gonna feel really uncomfortable in your own skin, and not like yourself for much longer. um
Hmm.
so getting the help, getting the treatment if things feel off, even if you maybe don't even have a diagnosis, or maybe you're just feeling like a little bit off but you can't really pinpoint what it is, like you don't have to have a diagnosis to get support or to see a therapist or any of those things. So I always like tell people, if you're even entertaining the thought of getting help, or you're wondering, is it too soon? It's the right time. Like, it's never too soon. It's
Hmm.
never too late. Just make sure that you're getting the help and the support that you need.
Yeah. I'm wondering too, like, so Phoenix Health obviously was built after your own, largely inspired by your own experience and sort of how maybe difficult it was to find help or how inaccessible maybe it felt. But like, what are you trying to, there's so many things messy and messed up about medicine and psychology and therapy and trying to find the help, it's so hard to get the help that you need. I was just curious what specifically, what were the pain points that you were feeling that you were like, I really want to try to make this, build something to make this so that other people don't have this experience?
Yeah, I would say there were three main pain points.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was that at the time that I was going through this, telehealth wasn't an option because it was pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So most providers weren't offering it.
Yeah.
And that thought of getting to an appointment, of carving out time in my work schedule, going after work just felt completely impossible and played a big part in me delaying seeking help. So having telehealth accessible, I feel like is super important. Another pain point was finding a provider that really understood maternal perinatal mental health. At the time, I didn't know that I should be looking for someone that had a certification in this area or had done additional trainings in this area. But like I mentioned earlier, in graduate school, you typically don't get much education on the perinatal period. So you're really not equipped to work with postpartum moms or families.
Mm-hmm.
So finding a provider that has that training, that has that specialization is really important. And that's what we offer all of our providers, have that additional training. And then the third part is the affordability. So the average family today can't afford to pay out of pocket for therapy. It's just the reality. Most people want to and need to use their health insurance. And because the healthcare system is, for lack of a better word, such a mess, a lot of providers are going out of network with insurance, which I completely understand because the system makes it so that sometimes feels like the only option. But then the problem is there's all these people who need this help that can't afford the care. So we take insurance, and that's something that's very important to us, is to be able to be financially accessible to the majority of the families.
I feel like I imagine people are just like, I don't know, banging on the metaphorical door. Or do you feel like, wow, people are really like rushing in? This is a need.
I think people definitely see the need. And we work with so perinatal refers to that entire period, from when a person's like trying to conceive, throughout pregnancy, throughout postpartum. And there are so many events that can happen during that time. Infertility, loss, often our reproductive journeys are very up and down, more like a roller coaster than a straight line. We work with people that are navigating, all of those experiences. So the response has been very positive because I think a lot of people are needing support in so many different areas throughout their reproductive journeys. It's definitely not just postpartum. And I think a lot of people are seeing the value in preventative care versus reactive care. Like, a lot of people reach out when they're pregnant and they say, I'm actually doing quite okay right now, but I'm kind of nervous about how I'm going to feel when I'm postpartum, or I have this history of anxiety and I'm worried it's going to flare up. So I want to establish this relationship with a provider now to be proactive, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, so smart. I often think about like because the medical experience of being pregnant and post-pregnancy, it's like you find a pediatrician, obviously, for the kid, and then you are going to your OBGYN. But there isn't anyone, like, through all of that should be some sort of mental health support. Like, they should be in the room with you, because it just feels like it's all happening now. And then to your point, we don't realize, typically it's only when something's gone wrong after the fact. And you, as the mother, are like not necessarily in the headspace to be able to say, I need help, because you're kind of just like plugging along in this misery. It feels like such an opportunity to have more integration. I know like the medical establishment is not about integration, but like, do you look at trying to get closer to like pediatricians or like OB practices in order to like make it more integrated in some way?
Yeah, we really want to establish more warm handoffs with providers like OBGYNs and pediatricians.
Yeah.
Because they're really on the front lines. They're the ones that are speaking with the moms and the dads and the parents. And they're the ones that are in theory, doing the screening and are detecting if there's possibly some symptoms going on. And they need to know where to send people. And I think handing someone a list of therapists in their area who, may or may not take their insurance or may or may not have waiting lists, that's just extra hurdles that then that person has to navigate. So having resources that, have openings, take this person's insurance, are available, are accessible, is so important. So that's definitely a big part of our work, is establishing those relationships with other providers.
Yeah. One thing I'm curious if this has entered like the therapy room. But we talk a lot about, and the internet talks a lot about the invisible load, the mental load that mothers are often carrying, like the many tabs that are open in our like in our browser window, in our brain. Um, is that something I'm curious how that shows up for you? And then I'm also curious if that's something that you, I don't know, in some ways like support clients to like how do we confront that mental load and like I don't know, how do we make it better?
Yeah.
Because no one seems to know.
It definitely shows up for me. I definitely
Yeah.
feel a lot of times like there's thousands of browsers open all at the same time, and it's very overwhelming. And it definitely
Mhm.
shows up with my clients. It definitely comes up in therapy. Um, I mean, I think nearly every mother I work with has brought this topic up at some point.
Mm.
And one of the big things we talk about is that relationship with, if she has a partner, that relationship with her partner and how involved they are. Are both parties
Mm.
feeling this mental load? Is one person feeling it more than the other? And how can we talk about it in a way that um, folks aren't going to get really defensive, but instead are going to hear that person out?
Yeah. I don't want to inconvenience anybody else. I'll just do it all myself. Um, I'm sure that person like has shown up in your practice multiple times. But like I don't know, do you know where does that come from? Like why are we assuming that we shouldn't inconvenience everybody and we should just like carry this ourselves? And if we can't, there's some sense of people have like pride in like doing it themselves. I don't know.
I love in therapy getting into the deep inner child stuff because there's so much
Yeah.
that comes up when someone becomes a parent. And a lot of times these fixed beliefs that we have are really rooted in early childhood stuff. So I like to get in there and
Mm.
really like get into the nitty gritty of them. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I see that comes up a lot. People just feel like it's easier if I do it. And, short term, it might be easier if you just did this and you didn't have to teach a person or, be a leader in that moment to kind of like guide them through doing it themselves. But long term, it's probably more of a burden for you to continue to be the one to do it. So you kind of have to also take a step back and think of it in terms of that. Like, is this just
Mhm.
a short term band aid that I'm putting up on the problem and it's going to continue to fall into my lap? Whereas if I took the time
Yeah.
now to kind of train my staff, meaning
Hmm.
my husband, my partner, my kids,
Yeah.
on how to do this, then I'm going to be saving myself time and stress in the long run.
Yeah. I often think about also like how parental leaves, to the extent that anyone has them, like the way that goes down really like solidifies a lot of these problems in some ways, where the mother typically has more leave than the father in a classic couple. And so that the mother's home doing all the things and just becomes like the default parent. Um, I don't know if that was your experience, but that like definitely, I feel like a lot of people we talk to do tend to feel like this kind of took root before I even knew what I wasn't trying to make it this way, but um, you have to really go an extra mile in order to like fight it in the early days. And also like the partner, spouse, father, whomever is not necessarily like trying to not be involved. But I feel like there's some systemic things that are keeping this problem alive. It's tough.
Yeah, I think it's really hard if both parties haven't had the opportunity to really do like day to day, to know what it's like to
Yeah.
be home with a baby or home with a child for a full day and do all the things. Because it's really easy to assume if you've never done it that, your spouse is at home and they're just having a grand old time. You're not seeing
Yeah.
everything that goes into it. The fact that they don't even have time to eat lunch and they have spit up all over them. They haven't showered. They haven't brushed their teeth.
Yeah.
So if it's possible, I think it's really important that everyone gets that opportunity to know what that
Mhm.
really feels like.
Yes. It used to bug me, but I feel like when I was at Google for a very long time and that had like by American standards, like very generous parental leave policies. And I would hear a lot of fathers in this case who would they wouldn't take the full leave right off the bat. They would sort of like flex it around like vacations and but some of them would do it when their spouse was going back to work, then they would take their leave and be with the kid full time. And I think that's such a good, to this point, I really like the idea of that because it does force both people to, and short of both of you being off together the entire time, I think it is, to your point, really great to be forced to do it by yourself. Because I'm sure it just creates both empathy, but also like the skill to do this, which otherwise not all of us are required to like deal with. So yeah, I wish I could go back and do that. Curious, like a little bit more on this like identity front for you and for what clients see of like this kind of figuring out who we are and if mother feels like it fully represents us or not, and kind of like how you feel about the identity of mom.
Yeah, there's, before you become a mom, you have this whole other identity. And for some of us, it's very career driven. Like our careers play a big part in how we see ourselves and in our identity. And then that kind of changes overnight. And then you're starting from the ground up of rebuilding, who am I? And then you go back to work and you're trying to figure out how all these different identities kind of fit together. And sometimes they clash and adjustments need to be made. So it's very messy. I mean, I know it's been very messy for me and it's very messy for a lot of the moms that I work with. And it's definitely not, you don't figure it out like, by the end of 3 months, like when you're going back to work. It's just, it's messy. And I remember people would say different things like, oh, by 12 weeks, you'll feel like yourself again. Oh, by, the first year is hard, but after a year, like you're good. And then all those milestones would happen and I wouldn't feel like I had made any progress.
Yes.
And it's a very slow, complicated transformation. It's just like, it's messy is like, I feel like the best way I could describe it.
Totally. What's like high level advice to someone who's like feeling the messiness, even to yourself, where you kind of just feel like you're failing on all fronts and like you're just going through the darkness with like a shitty flashlight? Like, I don't know, how do we keep ourselves going?
Yeah, I think as I've gotten older or farther along in my motherhood journey, I've definitely worked on embracing the messiness more and not this idea of like having to have it all figured out and be perfect. It's way easier said than done, but just really not judging yourself for what this journey looks like. Advice wise, like a big piece of advice that I talk to my clients about is social media and the part that that's playing and how they see themselves or how they're judging themselves. And if that's problematic, and if it is, definitely taking breaks from that, because there's just a lot of stuff out there on social media that's specifically marketed towards mothers. There's a time that we're very vulnerable, and some of it's really good, and some of it's just very difficult to navigate. And some of it preys on us too during a time when we preys on our anxiety, it preys on, like our intrusive thoughts, like all these things. So I definitely recommend like taking a step back and evaluating your relationship with social media and whether it's making you feel good or whether it's making you feel bad and making adjustments there.
Yeah. I was curious how it's been for you, because I mentioned this earlier, but if you're putting out really nice, I feel like you're trying to counter the narrative on social media of everything looking perfect. But you'll sort of do it looks perfect, but here's actually what's going on kind of content. I'm just curious, like, as a human being, I myself have had like, I hate social media, but I also, for building a business, I feel like I need to participate in a certain way, which is weird. It made me more exposed, especially given the theme of this business, in a lot of like the mother targeted content. And I find it really difficult to participate, even in a non-engaged way, even trying to do it in a passive fashion. I'm just curious how you felt, what your experience has been, like how you've kind of figured out your voice and felt comfortable putting this kind of content out there, whether that's been healing for you in some way. I'd love to hear.
I definitely try to communicate. I try to be very flexible with how I talk about motherhood. And I do try to debunk
Mm-hmm.
this narrative that it's like this black and white experience or one size fits all. Um, but I felt like I struggled with it in the beginning because I was always worried that people were gonna not like what I had to say or push back on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just kind of had to rip the Band-Aid off and just put it out there. And occasionally I will get pushback on things that I find kind of strange, like things that I'm like, I don't know how you could twist this into being a negative, but sometimes people just find a way to do that.
Mm.
And I've
Is
just
there a
tried
good
to,
example?
yeah, just try to realize like you can't please everybody. And some, people do have different opinions on things, or different ways of approaching motherhood or parenting. And
Yeah.
I just try to preach non-judgment. Like whatever you do, how you feed your baby, whether you sleep train or not, like whatever you do is, I'm not here to like tell you what the right way to do is. And the right way changes every 10 years
Mm-hmm.
anyways. So I'm just here
Yeah.
to support you, and I'm just here to make sure that your mental health is good.
Yeah. It goes all the way back again to like the community piece. Like I do find that's such a tightrope walk of trying to share messaging around the experience of motherhood where it feels like you have to do it. It's impossible to do it just right. There are other things that feel like there's more flexibility to talk about. I don't know whether it's like career guidance or even like weight loss advice, like wellness, like there are all the other subjects that feel like there's more grace around, there's more flexibility around what you could be saying as just even sharing your lived experience that you wouldn't be scrutinized for. And I think I think it's fascinating that a lot of mothers are making this content and they're getting scrutinized and skewered for saying things and trying to, I think, bring people together around a shared experience that doesn't mean that they've dealt with it the same way or it's been exactly the same for everybody. But I don't know what you make of the fact that it's so divisive when we're all out there feeling actually incredibly alone and just trying to connect.
Yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, I think humans try to create divisiveness, unfortunately, when all we really do want is to be in connection and community with each other. Um,
Yeah.
I just try to think about my daughters and what I want for them. And when they get older and if they have their own children, I just want them to be able to be honest if they're struggling and to feel comfortable having those conversations with me or with their providers. And that's just what I try to communicate is like, motherhood isn't bliss for everyone. For some people it is, and like that's wonderful, but it's not for everybody. And if it's not feeling joyful and amazing, there's nothing wrong. You're not failing, there's nothing wrong with you. And there's, a space to talk about it and there are things you can do. And sometimes people like, or even family members will be like, but at the end of the day, it's the best thing ever. And it's like, okay, it is the best
Yeah.
thing ever, but that's not really the
Yeah.
point of what we're here to talk about. It's just
Right.
let moms know that it's nothing wrong with you if you are feeling this way. And like, let's just be
Yeah.
more open, because the worst thing we can do is suppress our feelings. Like,
Yeah.
when we suppress it, that's when we get into trouble with substances, with, behavioral addictions, with,
Yeah.
repressed mental health symptoms, like all sorts of things. It's so much better to be honest about it, and just talk
Hmm.
about it, even if it's not the most glamorous thing.
Yeah, totally. I think a challenge is people don't know when, like, we had another guest, all of our guests actually at some point talk about ultimately, I struggled with postpartum anxiety or depression. Almost all of them talk about ending up using medication and like how helpful that was, but really regretting that they waited so long to get help and being like, you don't need to white knuckle it so much. I don't know if there's of course, everyone's different and we can't give like generic advice necessarily, but I'm just curious for like the person that's listening who is like having a hard time, like how can you help what could we say to them to help them recognize that this hard time is harder than it needs to be? And once they do, like, is there one thing, like, what's the first step? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes the first step is like the one that makes you not do any of the steps. Like, I don't know, if you've had advice for that hypothetical profile, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that are struggling and just feel that resistance to getting help. And I'm always having those conversations. Like, it doesn't have to be this hard. And there are these resources available. So let's make use of them. There's no reason for them to be there and just to continue to suffer and not access them. Um, what was the second part of your question?
Oh, it was like, so recognizing, when do you know that it's so hard and it's harder than it needs to be? Like, I think it's really hard to know, like, it's all hard. And like, when is it too hard? And then the other piece was like, well, if you've come to a place where you're like, I realize something's not right. Like, is there an initial first step that would help anyone? Because I think sometimes it's like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah. It could be, reaching out to a therapist. It could be joining the local mom group or mom walk, or it could be attending, a support group online or in person. It could look like so many different things, and it could be a combination of all of those things. There's like platforms like ours that you can go to and you can book appointments. We try to make it easier. And with the internet today, like just doing a search of local groups, mom groups, Postpartum Support International. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a really great organization. And they have, I think it's over 50 free online support groups for moms every week. So you can go on there, you can hop on a group. They also have a warm line that you can call, and someone will call you back and they'll connect you with a coordinator, and they can actually help you find resources in your area so you don't have to do all the digging yourself. Their website's postpartum.net, so they're a great resource. I usually start with them first because they're the ones that'll help guide you to where you need to be. It could also be talking to your healthcare provider about it, your doctor, your midwife, your doula. They should be equipped to talk to you about it and offer you resources. But it's just kind of about like saying it out loud and then taking that next step, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, totally. We had a prior guest that had a really good point about, not a professional, but in retrospect, she was like, it was really important for me to educate the people around me before I had my kid about like what the symptoms are, what to look for, so that they could step in when like you as the mother are not necessarily seeing things as clearly. So I also think sometimes I'm like, someone else should like, step in and help us. But anyways, so we like to end with these little short answer questions. And one we've kind of talked at in different ways, but one is that if you go back to your new mom self, is there anything that you wish you could say to her?
I would just want her to know that there's nothing wrong with you. That I felt so broken for having struggled with postpartum depression and had all that internalized stigma, but I would just tell her, like, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, I love that. Anything that would have made it, I mean, we've talked about a lot of them. Any themes of things that would have made motherhood or easier for you so far? Not that it's supposed to be easy, but sort of support that would have made it easier.
I think just more open conversations. Like I said, I think that we're having more of them in the last couple of years, but even just, my oldest is 7. I feel like 7 years ago, it was totally different. We weren't talking about this. And just the number of resources available has increased so much in the last several years.
Yeah.
And so all of those things would have made my life a lot easier. And just to know that there was nothing wrong with me, that I wasn't broken, and that really that it was okay to seek help.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. All right. Your kids may one day listen to Mom on this podcast. I'm curious if there's anything you'd like to say to them.
Oh, I just want to tell them that I love them so much, and that even though the beginning was really hard for me, that I love them so much, and they've helped me heal in a way that I wouldn't have if I had never had them. So thank you for that.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Well, Thank you for all the healing that you're helping other people get too. And congrats on building this business around something that's so useful and needed. So yeah, thank you for being here and telling us all about it. And you. Hopefully someone listening is, I don't know, gonna go take care of themselves a little bit more and a little bit differently. So thank you for the time. It's great to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Emily, what a sweet, sensitive soul. Let me call V. Give her the download. Hey V.
How you
Hello,
doing?
my
Yoo-hoo.
I wanted to call you. I just chatted with Dr. Emily Guarnotta, who is on a mission/journey to basically make maternal mental health more accessible, as like lower the barrier to entry.
Okay,
Generally.
Angel.
I know. Good stuff. Inspired by her own experience after she has 2 young kids that are like 7 and 5-ish. Something I'm forgetting. Single digits. And after her first kid, she really struggled and said she had a lot of shame around the fact that she was struggling, which prevented her from getting help, which was all swirling around like, I do this professionally.
Oh,
Why I can't be the one that both like had this happen to me
yep.
and then also isn't getting help.
Mhm.
She did talk a lot about, to that point, she was like, one thing that she's learned and that she's, coaching her clients about and that their practice is focused on is that, like, yes, there's help after the fact, but it's so important to prep for it. Like there's support you can get ahead of time or like set systems up ahead of time
Yes.
so that if and when you are struggling, well, regardless, like your life will be better no matter what. And it might make it less likely for you to dip all the way into um, a depressive episode.
Yes.
So anyway, I was thinking it was just interesting. Sure, this happens all the time. What do they say? Doctors make the worst patients.
Yes. Right.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, poor thing
Oh,
really had a hard time, but is brilliantly like turning that into something useful. I think to her credit was like, I feel like there's a need for this. I don't know how to do it all entirely. So she found this through like a Tinder for co-founder matching. She found
cool.
a co-founder that like does all the business side, and which was great. She sweet. I was like, I feel like I need this person. She like she was like, I don't know, he does like the P&L stuff. I don't and I was like, yeah, I think that's probably I need that person.
I would also like that.
Yes, yes.
Emphasis on the P, not emphasis
Yeah,
on the
exactly,
L.
exactly,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly,
Aw.
exactly. But yeah, I think she's very. I feel like she described herself as like kind of shy, introverted. I feel like she came off a little bit that way, which was endearing. We're all
Yeah.
trying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt
Aw.
like 2 to 3 things that were worth. I wanted to like highlight for you and anyone listening.
Help me
But
save
this
my life.
idea to do ahead of time, and obviously if they're not there now, like we could set them up, but these like she mentioned 4, I feel like we could come up with maybe more, but these were the ones that were sort of most top of mind for her about things to do ahead of time. So like anyone that's listening that's doesn't even have a baby yet, these are things to think about was like is figuring out your support systems, which initially I was like, okay, these are like who are your friends and family, and it was a lot of beyond that. It was like paid help. What's your childcare solve, and like thinking about or doulas and all these things. The other piece was to anticipate like the stressors in life, such as she's like finances is a big one that comes up a lot. Of, like talk with your partner. This is all an assumption that you are not doing this alone. I feel
Alone.
like these are true even if you are doing it alone, of
Yep.
course, but you don't have to have this different conversation with yourself. But figuring out like the financial side of this, and then also talking with your partner about like kind of clarifying roles ahead of time. Like we should all be doing
Yeah.
this. I think it's hard to know ahead of time, and hence why doing it with a professional involved to like guide you to
Facilitate
some
it. Yep.
answers. Yes. And she alluded to and came up more later. She's like a lot of those role expectations like are rooted in your own childhood and what were the systems that you grew up in, and like was dad never home? Like, those basic things. And then the piece about work. So like, you know, if everyone's going back to work at a certain point, like what are expectations around that and what does that look like? So all these things that are definitely smart to get ahead of. And then if we are not ahead, that we can talk about them now.
I love the idea of being like proactive versus reactive, which is such a not like United States healthcare, mental health care approach. We're
Yeah.
very much a like, oh shit, something bad happened. We'll work on it now versus like, here's all the things that we could do to prevent that bad shit from happening.
Yeah.
So it's funny because like in a lot of ways I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like that is a
Yeah.
good idea, but also like it seems so obvious. Like, of course you should do those things. Talk about like there's a lot of stuff we don't know what we don't know, but there's a lot of stuff
Right.
we know that we don't know that we can
Mm-hmm.
figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And like having someone to be that like liaison or hand holder of like, here's some things to put on your radar. Like, let's talk through it. This is what other people do. These are your options, whatever. Like, that's such a valuable thing to
I know.
invest in, like your time and energy and like I don't know, those few months before expecting a kid, you're just like, "Oh my god," like, everything feels so unpredictable that that could be very grounding to have those conversations of, like, I don't know, focusing on who is your community? Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
our game plan? Whatever, like, focusing on what you do have control
Mm-hmm.
over. That's very cool.
Totally. Yeah. And I kind of pushed around like the community support system of like, how do we, because as we talk about so many, everyone on this podcast is like,
Mhm.
one thing that would have made it easier is if I had had the village.
Mhm.
But everyone doesn't know how to make the village. And she says this one, she mentioned that she's kind of a little bit shy or like does not necessarily someone that would like put herself out there. And that she's like, it's as simple as actually going up to people and like kind of building a like just talking
Mhm.
to them and asking like if they want to spend time together, like go to coffee, whatever. And how she reminds herself that they also, she's like, I know that they want this too,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
helpful to remember that like
Mhm.
everyone else also is feeling alone and isolated. Um, and so if you hesitate or are nervous to like spark a friendship, that all moms
I
will have
love
more
that.
chance.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, very practical.
hell yes.
Um, but yeah, and then the other piece too, she was like, for anyone that's struggling, there's nothing wrong with you, and like kind of just normalizing. She referenced a lot this, which maybe I'm just out of it too, but that she felt like there's so much shame associated. Like having a baby is supposed to be so amazing and
Mm.
supposed to be like the best time of your life, and like it's so wonderful, but like, and that makes it harder when it doesn't feel good. Like
Yep.
to say, like
Yep.
you might think that there's something wrong with you. I feel like now I'm aware my vision is almost the opposite where I'm like, no one's talking about how it's like actually
Yeah.
like
Yep.
kind of nice to
Yep.
have a kid. We're
Mhm.
only talking about how awful it is.
Mm.
But that was like a guiding light, I think, for her and a lot of the messaging that she's putting out on the internet and herself, and like something that she's focused on is like just kind of normalizing that it's not always wonderful. And
Yes.
if you're not enjoying it, like there's
That's
nothing wrong with
okay.
you. And if you're not enjoying it in certain ways to a certain dark place, like let's get help.
Oh,
Um,
hell yes.
so yeah,
I love
good
that.
stuff. And I
Mm.
also just love anyone that's trying to like build something useful. She could be doing so many other things, but she's,
Truly.
trying to make this specific. It's sort of like what's it? BetterHelp, like all of
Mhm.
these online easy access to therapy kind of thing, but this one is like specialized.
So was
Or
she
to
doing this for postpartum women before having her kid?
no,
Wow. So it was like a, hey, that was like a really shitty experience for me, and so I want to make sure that
yes,
someone
yes, yeah,
good on you for
uh,
feeling something and doing something about it. Easier
yeah,
said than done. Like, I don't know.
totally,
Like, that's so amazing that she's like, oh, this is uncomfortable and not great. I want to make sure someone else
yeah,
doesn't do that too. That's,
yes, yes,
mm,
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah,
mm,
thank you, Dr. Emily. A
thank
phoenix
you.
rising from the ashes.
I love it. I love it.
Um, I know. What are you doing to rise from the ashes, V?
Girl, I don't know.
Just
Goldfish?
in the
Eating
ashes. It's cold out
goldfish.
there.
Yeah, I'm like, the ashes are fine. I'm fine.
Mm.
I don't know, pivoting that we are in our 15th illness, but my like little spark of joy is that like now I get to have an after I picked up our son early from daycare. today, but my joy is that now I get to have an afternoon with him, which is fun because I have been kind of missing these, like, I don't know, days of just us at the house,
Yeah.
even though it's like chaotic and balancing everything that I want to be doing, should be doing, could be doing, whatever. I'm also like, it's
Yes.
days are, what is it? Days are long, nights are, wait, days and nights are,
Hours are short, we're long. Days are short.
I'm like,
days are
everything
long.
is so
No,
fucking
everything's
long.
long and short.
And I'm also sad. No,
Days are long,
long,
years are
years
short.
are short. That's what it is, right? Where it's like in a lot of ways, I'm like, oh, I would love like alone, quiet time right now. I'm also like, he's only 15 months for so long, and I think it's fun to be able to spend this time together. So I'm kind of excited to just have some time, just us
Mm,
right now.
yeah. Oh
So
my gosh, yes. You should use that. Are you using the brick?
yes, we love the brick.
Ah,
Have we
put your
talked about the
phone
brick on
in the
here?
brick.
Yeah, we have, right?
No.
Oh,
Well, I think you said I remember, I forget if we were recording. I bet you told me you'd ordered one.
it's
I
fantastic.
haven't heard about how it's been.
It's great. It's on our fridge. I highly suggest everyone do it. Need to utilize it more. My partner is way better at that than I am because I love doom
Oh, why is he good
scrolling
at?
because he has self-control and I don't. I don't know.
He doesn't need the brick.
No, not really. And I love like midnight to 2 a.m. scrolling on TikTok, which is just like not good for anybody. So I need to be better about fully utilizing it at night. Because right now I'm like,
Yeah.
but what happens if I wake up at night? It's like, well, what happens is you
Yeah.
could just not open your phone. Um,
Yeah.
but I highly suggest everyone gets the Brit.
Is it BRICK?
Yep.
Or is it fancy with just a K or something?
No.
Okay. Put it in your phone.
BRIQUE.
Brick?
Brick.
Yes. Yes.
Just brick. Just plain brick.
Oh, I love that. Maybe
Yeah.
my joy is I'm gonna get a brick.
You
'Cause
should.
I
You
hate my
should.
phone. I hate that it's always around.
I know.
It follows me everywhere.
Mine
It's
follows me
crazy.
everywhere, and I still manage to have 300 plus texts to respond to.
Yeah.
Make that make sense.
Oh,
I don't know.
I know. Maybe the brick should be trained to like auto reply also.
Oh, would love that.
Yeah. Brick, I have an idea for you.
Or
Mm.
let's make our own. It's just called
Or even just messaging should have like an auto reply.
I
You
would
know how you
love
set
that.
like out of office
Yep.
for your email?
I think there is an option for that. Is there? I feel
I
like
don't know.
for 1 week, like 3 years ago, I did that where I sent to like set an automatic response that was like, thanks for your text. I'm taking intentional time away from my phone, but I'll respond when I can. Something like that. And then I
Copy
was like, that
paste
just sounds so
send.
pretentious and like ridiculous. Yeah.
I mean,
But
it should. I feel like people in work, like we're now getting inundated.
right,
It used to be obviously work was just at work. There was
right,
no work at home. And then of
right.
course we invented computers and then we invented email.
I
And so
know.
all that could happen. And now they're coming at your phone. Like there's just
They're
no way
coming
to
at you
just,
from everywhere.
they
They're knocking
are.
on your door.
I need an out of office
I
for
know.
all forms, every tentacle that
Truly.
digital world has like
Truly.
into me. I need an out
Oh,
of office.
I love you. Oh man. We'll get there.
Maybe
What's
it's
your
called like
joy?
moving to the woods.
Okay, Walden. Bye.
Okay, my joy is I almost feel like this was a joy before, which tells you something. But so I've been trying to pull myself together and like going through the hardness of building a thing. And I've been trying to share that with others so that I can feel not alone in it. And I shared it with our prior guest, Aribi, or I should say Aribi, who is conveniently also like a executive coach and formerly like a lawyer and all these things.
Yes.
And she's been very both quick to respond and engaged and offered lots of help, including the idea of for anyone that can't have help, sometimes
There's
those are people that need to
MasterCard.
like pay for help. So I'm like hiring this strategy advisor consultant for a short period of time to like
Yes.
I feel like in the building of the business, I've like gotten very sucked into all the day-to-day execution and like want to build this to something bigger than it is. And I need to be held accountable to that.
Love it.
And this kind of as a person that it's one of those things where I'm like, I could and should do this all by myself. I know how to do this, but I'm like not doing it. It's the idea of like just paying someone for 4 months, give me the frameworks I need to fill out and tell me they're due.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
So a little bit of it feels really I feel unwell saying it out loud.
Nope.
Alex Cooper.
Just say it. Ew.
But I do feel I feel really uncomfortable spending money on myself to do something that I know I could do on my own.
It does make sense, but I wish it wasn't true.
I know.
But
And
I
say
get
it out
that.
because I know that I know that so many people are like this.
I was just gonna say,
and we'll see if it's worth it.
yeah, you are worth it.
That was such a waste.
Well,
But-
well, if it's a financial waste, then it's a lesson.
Correct.
Everything has an
Yes.
opportunity to
I agree.
learn.
We're just bopping around here absorbing lessons.
I love
I
it.
am a what is it? Rebel without a cause.
I know
am
that's
a
right.
sponge without a purpose.
I am help me.
Sponge without water or too much water. I'm a dry sponge. I don't know. Let's stop talking.
I love you.
All right. I love you so much.
You're the best.
Hang in there in the squalls of endless illnesses.
They
will pass.
You
and
too.
you'll be a yacht after this.
Hell fucking yes. Hell yes.
All right. I love you. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.